A stone fell from the sky. Not a soldier's spear, not an arrow from a warrior's bow, but a simple stone dropped by a woman's hand. It crashed into the skull of a king, shattering his pride, his power, and his life in an instant. The king screamed, humiliated, begging his armor-bearer to thrust a sword into his chest so that no one could ever say, "A woman killed him." This is the story of Abimelech, the son of Gideon, the self-proclaimed king of Shechem, the man who rose through blood, treachery, and fire, only to be destroyed by the justice of God. But to understand the end of Abimelech, we must first return to the beginning, to the legacy of his father. The land of Israel was restless. Years earlier, a man named Gideon, also called Jerubbaal, had risen as a judge, a warrior chosen by God to deliver Israel from the Midianites. His story was legendary. 300 men with trumpets and torches scattering thousands of enemies in the night. Gideon became a hero, a man of faith, a man of courage, a man who turned the tide of Israel's destiny. But after the victory, came the peace. And peace, as always, brought a new problem: what to do with power. The people begged Gideon to be their king. They pleaded, "Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from Midian." But Gideon refused. "I will not rule over you," he said. "The Lord will rule over you." And yet, though Gideon refused the crown, he lived like a king. He gathered wealth, gold, and many wives. He fathered 70 sons, 70 princes in the land. And then there was one more son, not born of a wife, but of a concubine in Shechem. His name was Abimelech. Abimelech grew up different from his brothers. He was not the son of Gideon's honored wives. He was the outcast, the half-blood, the son of a Shechemite woman. But in his heart burned a question, a temptation, a dark hunger. Why should my brothers rule, and not me? After Gideon's death, Israel forgot the Lord once again. They returned to idols, building altars to Baal-berith, the god of the covenant. And in this atmosphere of rebellion, Abimelech saw his chance. He traveled to Shechem, to his mother's relatives, and spoke with cunning words. "Which is better for you? That 70 men rule over you, all the sons of Gideon, or that one man rule over you? And remember, I am your flesh and blood." His words slithered through their hearts like a serpent's whisper. Why should 70 sons, scattered and proud, rule them? Why not one? Why not Abimelech, their own kin? The people of Shechem agreed. They gave him 70 pieces of silver, blood money taken from the temple of Baal. With this silver, Abimelech hired worthless men, reckless followers, a gang of thugs who would kill for coin. With steel in hand and hatred in his eyes, Abimelech led his men to Ophrah, his father's city. There, on one stone, he slaughtered his 70 brothers. One by one, they were dragged, tied, and executed, their blood soaking the ground that Gideon had once sanctified with victory. But one son escaped, the youngest, Jotham. When the massacre was done, the people of Shechem crowned Abimelech as king. But before the celebration could rise, Jotham appeared. He climbed to the top of Mount Gerizim, overlooking the city, and shouted a parable, the first parable in the Bible. "Listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once went out to anoint a king. They said to the olive tree, 'Reign over us.' But the olive tree refused. They said to the fig tree, 'Come and reign over us.' But the fig tree refused. They said to the vine, 'You reign over us.' But the vine also refused. Finally, they said to the bramble, 'Come and reign over us.' And the bramble said, 'If you truly anoint me king, then take shelter in my shade. But if not, Let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. You have made Abimelech king with blood and betrayal. If this was done in good faith, may you rejoice in him. But if not, may fire come from Abimelech and consume you. And may fire come from you, the men of Shechem, to consume Abimelech. With that, Jotham fled, disappearing into the wilderness. His words hung in the air like a curse. The people laughed, but heaven did not forget. Abimelech ruled Israel for 3 years. But he was no shepherd king. He was the bramble, the thorn bush. He spread his rule through violence, not wisdom. His crown rested on the edge of a sword, and his throne stood on the graves of his brothers. Fear, not love, held the people in line. But what begins in blood, always ends in blood. After 3 years, God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the people of Shechem. The city that once crowned him began to whisper against him. They set men in ambush on the mountain roads, robbing travelers, spreading unrest. Their loyalty shifted, their faith crumbled. In Shechem, a man named Gal son of Ebed rose up. A bold, arrogant voice. At a feast, with wine in his hand and the people gathered, Gal mocked Abimelech. Who is Abimelech, and why should we serve him? Is he not the son of Gideon's concubine? Serve the men of Hamah, the father of Shechem. Why should we bow to this half-blood? If I were in command, I would overthrow him. Tell him to gather his army, and I will face him. The crowd roared with approval. The seeds of rebellion had been sown. When Abimelech heard of Gal's boasting, his rage boiled. He set a trap, hiding his men in the fields. As the morning sun rose, Gal stood at the gate and saw shadows on the mountains. Look, he said, men are coming down from the hills. Zebul, the governor of Shechem and secret ally of Abimelech, sneered. You mistake shadows for men. But as the armies drew near, Zebul turned on Gal. Where is your boasting now? Go out and fight. Gal and his men charged, but Abimelech's army crushed them. Gal fled. His rebellion ended as quickly as it began. But Abimelech's fury was not satisfied. The next day, he divided his men into 3 companies and ambushed Shechem. He slaughtered the people in the fields, stormed the city, and killed its inhabitants. Then he tore down the city and sowed it with salt, making it barren, cursed, unfruitful. But his vengeance was not over. The survivors fled into the tower of Shechem, a stronghold of Baal. They locked themselves inside, thinking the stone walls would protect them. Abimelech gathered wood, branches, and brush. He ordered his men, what you see me do, do quickly. Together they piled the wood against the tower and set it ablaze. Flames roared upward. Smoke filled the air. The cries of men, women, and children echoed as the fire consumed them all. About 1,000 people perished in the blaze. The Bramble King had burned his own people alive. But fire was waiting for him, too. Abimelech marched next to Thebez, another city that rebelled. He captured it, but once again, the people fled into a strong tower. Abimelech approached to burn this tower as well. He drew near to the entrance, preparing the fire. And then, from above, a woman lifted a millstone, a heavy stone used to grind grain. She hurled it down. The stone struck Abimelech's skull. It cracked his head open. Staggering, bleeding, humiliated, Abimelech called to his armor-bearer. Draw your sword and kill me, so that men will not say, a woman struck him down. The young man obeyed, and Abimelech fell. Thus ended the reign of the Bramble King. And so the word of Jotham came true. The bramble had devoured Shechem with fire, and Shechem, in turn, had devoured Abimelech. The man who rose through blood and treachery fell in humiliation. The city that crowned him in arrogance was destroyed in flames. This was no accident. This was the justice of God. Abimelech's story echoes through time as a warning. Beware the Bramble Kings, those who rise by manipulation, who rule by fear, who burn even their own people to maintain power. For in the end, fire always finds the bramble.